You've probably noticed something strange in your life. The people who actually get things done never talk about motivation. They don't post quotes, they don't wait to feel ready, they don't search for the perfect routine or the right mood. While most people are still lying in bed, scrolling, negotiating with themselves, these people have already acted. Not loudly, not emotionally, just quietly and consistently. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If motivation worked, you would already be where you want to be. You wouldn't keep restarting, you wouldn't keep planning, you wouldn't keep watching videos like this hoping something finally clicks. Motivation is not your problem, it's your addiction. Because motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. They rise, they fall, they disappear when pressure arrives. The Japanese understood this long before modern self-help existed. They didn't build warriors on motivation, they built them on duty. A concept so strict, so identity-driven, that it moved the body even when the mind wanted to stop. They called it Yamato Damashii. Not a technique, not a mindset, a way of being. This is stillness in direction. Here, we don't chase inspiration. We build identities that act even in silence. If you're tired of starting and stopping, subscribe to the channel. And if you're willing to hear something that challenges how you see discipline, like the video now. Not for the algorithm, as a declaration to yourself. Now, listen carefully. There are two types of motivation. The first is excitement, that surge you feel after a powerful video or quote. It feels good, and it disappears just as fast. The second is something deeper, older, more dangerous. It has nothing to do with feeling inspired. It's duty. Duty doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't wait for energy. It doesn't negotiate. Duty is an order. This is why most people fail. They try to build discipline on emotion, on desire, on mood. But emotion changes daily. One day you feel unstoppable. The next day you feel tired. And the day after that, you quit. Japanese discipline was designed to survive this cycle. It removes emotion from the equation entirely. When something is your duty, you don't ask whether you want to do it. You do it because not doing it would violate who you are. This is where Yamato Damashii begins. It's not about being aggressive. It's not about suffering for the sake of suffering. It's about identity. A warrior doesn't wake up deciding whether to train. That question doesn't exist. Training happens because that is what warriors do. Most people live in desire. I want to be disciplined. I want to change. I want to become better. Desire creates distance. Distance creates negotiation. Negotiation creates delay. Yamato Damashii removes distance. You don't want to act. You are someone who acts. And once identity changes, action becomes inevitable. This is why knowledge alone doesn't transform you. You can read every book, watch every video, understand every strategy, and still remain the same. Because knowledge without duty is dead weight. In the next section, you'll hear a story from ancient Japan about a man who knew everything but did nothing, and how a single brutal lesson destroyed his dependence on motivation forever. The year is 10th century Japan. A young man named Tadayoshi is admired by everyone around him. Not for strength, not for courage, for knowledge. He has read more books than men twice his age. Military strategy, philosophy, ancient Chinese texts, the writings of generals, scholars, and thinkers. Other nobles waste their time drinking and writing poetry. Tadayoshi studies. He tells himself this is preparation, that one day, when he's ready, he will act. Every morning he wakes up with intention. Today I will train. Today I will begin. But every morning something happens. He notices a scroll he hasn't fully mastered, a concept he doesn't yet understand perfectly, and a thought appears, quiet and reasonable. How can I train without understanding everything first? So he studies more. He takes notes. He memorizes. and by the time the sun sets, the day is gone. Tomorrow, he promises himself. Tomorrow I'll start. Tomorrow never comes. Servants begin whispering. Other nobles laugh. They give him a name, the Warrior of Books, because Tadayoshi knows everything and does nothing. One evening, his father looks at him and speaks a sentence that cuts deeper than any blade. You have the mind of a general and the heart of a scribe. All that knowledge without action is worthless. You're not alive, you're a ghost. That night, Tadayoshi doesn't sleep. For the first time, he understands the truth. Knowledge is not the problem. Motivation is not the problem. Hesitation is. The next morning, something changes. He doesn't open a book. He leaves the house and walks into the forest, not knowing where he's going. That's when he hears it. A sound. Wood cutting through air. Again, and again, and again. Rhythmic, relentless, unemotional. In a clearing, he sees an older man practicing with a wooden sword. The same movement, the same stance, repeated hundreds of times. No expression, no excitement, just presence. This is discipline, Tadayoshi realizes. Not dramatic, not inspiring, unavoidable. He approaches and bows. Teach me, he says. The man looks at him once and replies with a single word. No. Tadayoshi panics. He explains how much he knows, the books he's read, the strategies he's mastered. The man listens, unimpressed. You know techniques, he says. Good, go use them. And he turns away. Something breaks inside Tadayoshi. Please, he says. I need to change. The man stops. You will quit, he says calmly. I won't, Tadayoshi replies immediately. Everyone quits. I won't. The man considers him for a long moment. Tomorrow, he says, before sunrise, here. If you come, I'll consider teaching you. If you don't, never return. That night, Tadayoshi is restless, not from excitement, from fear. Because for the first time, motivation isn't enough. The test will be action, and action exposes truth. In the next section, you'll see the first real lesson Tadayoshi is taught and why Japanese discipline doesn't ask why you should act, but demands that you do. Tadayoshi arrives before sunrise, not because he feels confident, because he is afraid not to. The forest is cold, dark, silent. He waits, shivering, watching the sky slowly change color. Then the man appears. No greeting, no approval, just a command. Stand. He shows Tadayoshi a basic fighting stance, knees bent, back straight, arms extended, wooden sword held steady. This is the foundation, the man says. Hold it. For how long? Tadayoshi asks. Until I tell you to stop. Minutes pass. At first it feels manageable, then uncomfortable, then painful. His legs begin to shake. Sweat forms despite the cold. His mind starts screaming. This is pointless. This hurts. I can't do this. 10 minutes. Every muscle burns. His back trembles. His arms feel like stone. Master, Tadayoshi whispers, ashamed. I don't think I can continue. Silence. The man sits on a rock, watching without expression. Your mind is telling you to stop, he finally says. It lies. Your body is capable of far more than your mind allows. 15 minutes. Tears fill Tadayoshi's eyes, not from emotion, from pain. Stop, the man says suddenly. Tadayoshi collapses forward, gasping, his legs useless beneath him. He expects understanding, encouragement. What he sees is disappointment. 15 minutes, the man says calmly, and you're ready to quit? Do you think battles last 15 minutes? Do you think life waits for you to feel comfortable? Go home, he says. You don't have what it takes. Something inside Tadayoshi fractures. But from that break, something harder forms. No, Tadayoshi says, forcing himself to stand on shaking legs. I'll do it again. The man studies him. Do you think motivation will save you? He asks. This anger you feel will disappear by tomorrow. You'll wake up sore, tired, and you won't come back. I will, Tadayoshi says. Why? The question is simple and devastating. Tadayoshi opens his mouth, then closes it. Because every answer he has is a feeling, desire, shame, pride, all temporary. The man turns away. You don't know, he says, and because you don't know, you will quit. Wait, Tadayoshi says desperately. Then tell me, why should I come back? The man stops. Because it is your duty. Duty? Tadayoshi repeats. Duty to the man you declared you would become. Motivation is a feeling, the man continues. Duty is an order. Feelings change with the wind. Duty remains in the storm. He takes a step away. We have a word for this, he says without turning. Yamato Damashii. The spirit that moves the body even when the mind wants to stop. That night, Tadayoshi understands something terrifying. If he doesn't return, nothing changes. And if he does return, the old version of him begins to die. In the next section, you'll see what happens on the second day, and why showing up when you feel weakest is the moment identity begins to shift. The second day is worse. Tadayoshi wakes with a body that feels broken. His legs barely support his weight. Every muscle protests with each step. There is no excitement this morning, no courage, no confidence, only soreness and doubt. For the first time, he understands something clearly. If he shows up today, it will not be because he wants to, and that terrifies him. He considers staying home. No one would know. No one would punish him. Except himself. He remembers the words spoken without emotion. Duty remains in the storm. So he goes. The man is already waiting. You came, he says, not as praise, as observation. I said I would, Tadayoshi replies weakly. Yesterday you said that with emotion. Today you say it with pain. Which one is real? Tadayoshi doesn't answer. The man gestures to the same stance. Again. The same position, the same posture, the same silence. Pain arrives faster today. Much faster. His body hasn't recovered. His legs begin to shake almost immediately. Minutes pass. Every instinct tells him to stop. This time, something different happens. He doesn't argue with the pain. He doesn't try to escape it. He stays. The man speaks without looking at him. Yesterday, you fought discomfort. It exhausted you. Today, you are learning something else. Pain is not the enemy. Hesitation is. Tadayoshi's legs finally give out. He collapses. The man checks the time. 20 minutes, he says. 5 more than yesterday. Tadayoshi is shocked. He felt weaker, more tired, less capable, and yet he lasted longer. How? He asks between breaths. Your body is weaker today, the man says, but your identity is stronger. This is Yamato Damashii. It does not make you feel powerful. It removes the need to feel anything at all. Over the next days, the pattern continues. No praise, no encouragement, no speeches, only repetition. The same stance, the same time, the same place. Each morning, Tadayoshi feels resistance before he arrives. Each morning, he arrives anyway. And slowly, something changes. The internal conversation shortens. The voice that asks, "Should I go?" grows quieter, not because it is convinced, but because it is ignored. The man explains nothing at first. Then, One morning, he speaks. "You spent years studying strategy," he says. "Tell me, what separates a scholar from a warrior?" Tadayoshi struggles to answer. "Knowledge?" he says finally. "No," the man replies. "Knowledge without action is decoration. A sword that never leaves its sheath is useless metal. You didn't fail because you lacked intelligence. You failed because you lacked identity. Yamato Damashii is what turns knowledge into motion." Later that day, they walk to a river. The water is cold, fast, unforgiving. "You will stand on that rock," the man says, pointing to the center, "in your stance." "For how long?" Tadayoshi asks. "Until you understand." The water cuts into his legs like knives. 5 minutes, 10. Panic rises. Every cell screams to escape. "Why?" Tadayoshi shouts. "Why must I do this?" "Because it is your duty," the man answers calmly. "You asked to change. Change demands payment." At some point, something breaks. Not his body, his resistance. He stops fighting the cold, stops bargaining. The pain remains, but the suffering lessens. When he is finally allowed out, the man speaks. "For the first part, you fought reality. That is why it hurt so much. When you accepted that this was required, the mind stepped aside. This is the secret. Duty removes negotiation, and without negotiation, pain loses power." Tadayoshi understands now. Discipline is not forcing yourself to act. It is becoming someone who acts regardless of feeling. And this is why most people fail. They want transformation without the death of the old self. By the second week, Tadayoshi begins to change. Not dramatically, not visibly, but internally, something dangerous starts to happen. Confidence. He can hold the stance longer now. His body responds faster. The pain is familiar, and familiarity breeds a new temptation. Comfort. That's when the invitation arrives. A full moon festival. Music, sake, laughter. The kind of night Tadayoshi once lived for. He tells himself he has earned it. 7 days without missing training. One night won't matter. This thought feels harmless, reasonable. That's how discipline dies. The next morning, Tadayoshi doesn't appear. The clearing is empty. The man waits. The sun rises fully. Tadayoshi sleeps in, dulled by drink and comfort. When he wakes, guilt hits immediately. He knows what he's done. He returns the following day expecting rejection. The man is there. Not angry. Worse. Disappointed. "You missed yesterday," he says quietly. "It was the festival," Tadayoshi begins. "You don't owe me an explanation," the interrupts. "You owe yourself one. You chose comfort over duty. That choice tells me everything." Tadayoshi's chest tightens. "I'm sorry," he says. "Please let me continue." "It wasn't a mistake," the man replies. "It was a decision. You still think Yamato Damashii is about effort. It's not." He turns to leave. Panic floods Tadayoshi. "Wait," he says. "I understand now." "Do you?" the man asks without turning. "Then tell me, what is Yamato Damashii?" Tadayoshi closes his eyes. He thinks of the river, the stance, the cold. "It's not about doing hard things," he says slowly. "It's about identity. When I didn't show up, I didn't skip training. I betrayed who I said I was." The man is silent for a long time. Then he nods. "Now you're beginning to understand." What follows is punishment. Not emotional, not angry. Precise. 2 hours in the stance. No mercy.
When Tadayoshi collapses, shaking and broken, the man speaks. "This pain," he says calmly, "you chose it yesterday. When you break duty, you don't escape consequences, you delay them, and they return heavier." The next day, the lesson changes. No physical training. The man draws a line in the dirt. "When you say, 'I want to be disciplined,'" he explains, "you create distance. Distance creates negotiation. But when you say, 'I am disciplined,' there is no space to argue. Identity does not take days off. You don't decide whether to be yourself today." Tadayoshi finally sees it. Discipline is not an action, it is a state. Once identity is fixed, behavior follows automatically. This is why gaps are lethal. A gap doesn't just interrupt a habit, it cracks identity. And identity, once cracked, must be rebuilt from pain. Most people quit not because discipline is hard, but because it is unforgiving. It remembers every excuse. In the final section, you'll see what happens when identity fully locks in, why true discipline looks calm instead of intense, and how Yamato Damashii turns ordinary people into something unbreakable.
The transformation does not announce itself. There's no moment where Tadayoshi feels powerful, no surge of pride, no sense of victory. What replaces his old self is quieter than that. Stability. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. Training happens before sunrise, every day, without discussion. Not because Tadayoshi forces himself, but because the question no longer exists. He does not wake up asking if he will train. He wakes up and trains. This is the final stage of Yamato Damashii, action without inner conflict. One morning, Tadayoshi wakes with a fever. His body aches. His vision blurs. The old voice appears briefly. "You're sick. Rest today." And for the first time, he notices something strange. The voice has no power. He gets up anyway. Not heroically, not defiantly. Naturally. He walks to the clearing. The man sees him immediately. "You're sick," he says. "I am," Tadayoshi replies. "Why are you here?" The answer comes without thought. "Because this is who I am." The man smiles for the first time. Not approval, recognition. "Now you understand," he says. Yamato Damashii is not strength, it is inevitability. Not doing this would feel stranger than doing it. That is the moment the training ends. Because the goal was never endurance, it was identity. Years later, Tadayoshi becomes a leader of men. Not the loudest, not the most aggressive, the most reliable. His soldiers do not hesitate, not because they are fearless, but because hesitation has been trained out of them. They do not wait to feel ready. They act because action is expected. This is why Yamato Damashii was feared, not because it created violence, but because it created consistency. And consistency outlasts everything. Centuries later, the concept is corrupted, turned into propaganda, twisted into blind obedience. But the original meaning was never about empire. It was personal. Duty to the self you declared. Not emotion, not motivation. Duty. This is the truth most people never accept. You don't fail because you lack knowledge. You fail because you live as someone who negotiates. You wait, you plan, you prepare, and you remain unchanged. Yamato Damashii demands something brutal, that the version of you who delays must die. In its place, someone quieter emerges, someone who does not need encouragement, someone who does not seek permission, someone who acts because acting is normal. This is why motivation becomes irrelevant. Motivation is for beginners.
Identity is for those who finish. If you take one thing from this, let it be this. Do not ask what you should do. Decide who you are. Then act as that person until acting any other way feels impossible. This is stillness and direction. Not inspiration, not intensity, identity. And that is why this discipline breaks almost everyone before it rebuilds the few who are willing to endure it.